Hey everybody, it's been a while since I have done a video, and I wish today I was sharing something really positive, but unfortunately I'm not. And this is not something that I really wanted to post on social media for a variety of reasons. I'm a private person when I can be. There are some things that I do share on social media for the purpose of encouraging other people, spreading awareness, and moments like now when I feel it's important to be authentic and honest and very real. I do share some of my journey, my weight loss journey, my health journey, my emotional well-being journey with all of you online, again, because it's just been a very important part of my process. So I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible, but there is a lot of information to share. And a big reason that I am sharing it is because as much as I really wanted to try to keep it private, I'm going to be attending a funeral today, one that I wish I didn't have to go to. It's a very sad situation, but I'm going to be seeing people out in public, and I have already gotten some private messages, and it's just circulating. And so I would rather just you hear it from me before rumors get started or you hear from other people. So those of you who have been following my story know that for a majority of my life, most of my life, I have been incredibly overweight. I had twins in 2010, and I was well over 320 pounds when I gave birth to my sweet baby boys. I spent several years after that trying to figure out how to get the baby weight off, in addition to the weight I already had before getting pregnant with them. When I delivered them, I was very large. I decided right after I turned 38, going into turning 39, that I was going to be fit by 40. Long story short, I was able to figure out what made the most sense for me, really tackling my emotional connection to food, trying to deep dive into my deepest fears, and I was able to lose 130 pounds. I did not have any kind of weight loss surgery. I simply figured out what foods my body likes. I did do well with overcoming emotional eating and replacing it with exercise and other healthier forms of expression. That is still a long process, and I'm still working on that. But I did lose a tremendous amount of weight and decided to have skin removal surgery. I have already put out a couple of videos about that surgery, and those of you who have been following my story for a while know that I had a tremendous amount of complications. That surgery was at the very end of June of 2019, and the plan was only to have skin removal all the way from my stomach to my spine. It was a 360 abdominoplasty procedure. The surgeon that I hired was a local surgeon. At the time, I had very limited experience, knowledge, and resources to have the surgery. I really felt that I had hired the right individual. He felt that the project was very big and brought in another surgeon to assist him. The surgery was done actually in North Carolina, about 2 hours away from where I live. And the surgery was only supposed to be about 4 or 5 hours long. Somehow in the mix of it, they decided to do butt augmentation. What that meant was they carved me below my low back and they tacked the tissue underneath of each buttock. I had no idea that butt augmentation even existed at the time. It was not something that I requested, and it was not something that I was prepared for. I did not have proper aftercare. I did not wake up in a compression garment as I ought to have. And I had a string of complications. Every complication you could think of, I had. I dehisced on the right hip, which means the incisions came apart, and that really probably was from me traveling back home, because I wasn't traveling home in the position that I ought to have been. I also dehisced in another spot in my butt crack. And then later on, a couple months into my recovery, basically on my 10th wedding anniversary, the very beginning of October, I discovered that I had an abscess the size of a lemon in my right buttock. That led to months of drains, tissue being cut out. And then when COVID hit in April of 2020, I went into my surgeon's office and he completely opened me up and cut out all of the dead tissue. We thought that that was going to rectify the situation, and that left me completely disfigured on the right side. And then on the left side, I still had a lot of swelling that we couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And come to find out, I had a large seroma. I had it tapped for several weeks and nothing worked. We decided to take a break from any kind of surgery for a year, maybe a little over a year, until I started developing muscle spasms, muscle strains, pinching nerves, because my body was completely lopsided. And at the time, I was doing some extra exercise. I was teaching a physical class. I was trying to get back into Watsu. Things were just falling apart. And so my surgeon and I decided to do what we call a fat transfer, where we took fat from the right, each part of my thigh on the right side and the left side, the outer parts of the thighs, and tried to put fat back into the right side where I was completely dented in, and then try to drain out the left side and replace it with fat. It did not take on the left side. It was, that procedure was done in June, and then come the end of October, I developed some kind of a lump underneath of the left buttock where I had an accumulation of fluid. My surgeon felt that it was a varicose vein that had ruptured. Obviously, I absolutely insisted on having an ultrasound, and that's when we discovered that I had fluid accumulation. I had to give up yet another holiday, and then in that November, I was opened back up to have more tissue cut out. I had a drain put in, so yet another drain, and December 8th, the drain was removed. A few days later, I started leaking. I started leaking out the left buttock through a hole in the bottom, and I leaked all the way until February. It was devastating. During this time, I was in and out of the pool. I was not able to do Watsu therapy. I was losing clients. I was losing income. I was in and out of work with a massage, and also during that time, I had decided to become a health coach. It has been a lot emotionally to deal with, and it has been, it's just been a lot. So long story short, I had a CT scan, which uncovered that I had yet another cavity in the left buttock. I decided to take a step back and see if it would heal on its own. It was incredibly emotional. It was very difficult for me to move forward with not just my weight loss goals, because I did lose additional weight after my skin removal surgery, but gaining muscle, getting strong. I wanted to coach people. I wanted to be authentic. There was so much that I wanted to do, and I was being held back more and more through the whole process. Not only did I wind up losing Watsu as a career because of my inability to be in the pool, but it was also now making it incredibly difficult for me to teach my I Chi classes. I couldn't hold my body up, and I lived in a constant state of fear. I had wanted to start lifting weights, and I was trying to lift weights, but every time I did, I had pain in my left buttock. I went back to see my surgeon at the beginning of October of this past year, 2023, where he informed me that the cavity had closed, but what I was experiencing was scar tissue. And if I wanted to have that removed, he would have to slice me up the middle of the left buttock to remove the tissue, in which case I would have more scarring and more time out of work, and I would be indented in like I was on the right side. And so it just felt like I was constantly cutting off my nose to spite my face, and I was in a place of complete and utter frustration with my body, the situation, and the circumstances in which I found myself. I know what you're thinking, and you're wondering why I did not sue this man. That's a complex situation, and that's not something that I really want to discuss at this point. It's not black or white to me, and it's just not something that I feel comfortable doing for a variety of reasons. So moving forward, I recognized that something had to be done. I reached out to numerous surgeons to get a second opinion. I reached out to a few locally here in Johnson City, one in Kingsport. I reached out to someone in Kentucky, so 2 surgeons in Georgia, and everyone responded with Either they wouldn't respond at all, or they would not work with me because I was considered a risk. So no one would help me. I finally found an all-female team in Franklin, Tennessee. And after weeks of sending pictures and explanations of what I had endured, even though the surgeon originally said that she felt that this was not something she wanted to get involved with, she took pity on me. And she finally agreed to see me. After multiple conversations, I wanted her to cut out the tissue and see what she could do as far as filling in all of the gaps of my rear end on both sides. I also had my right side incision was incredibly low and very wide. And I had a lot of what she called redundancy, scar tissue and damage around my incision line. Everything had just dropped down. There was just so much damage. What she felt that she should do for me was the kindest and simplest thing, which was a posterior trunk lift with reappropriation of fat, meaning I would have to gain some weight and she would have to take fat from my low back and possibly more from my thighs to fill in all the gaps of tissue. What was supposed to be a repair and some revision became complete reconstruction as she discovered that it was not scar tissue that I had in my left buttock, but rather necrotic tissue that was fast spreading. It was the size of a girl's softball. I can't begin to tell you how emotional that makes me feel to know that I tried to share that with my previous surgeon and I felt really dismissed. I digress at this point and say that I know that I chose the right surgeon to go to. The challenges that meant my recovery was going to be much different than we anticipated. More fat was needed to reconstruct the areas and more incisions needed to be made. The other thing that caught us by surprise was I had 2 drains, one in each hip, and I was putting out old dark blood. In order to have the drains removed, they needed to meet criteria of having less than 20 cc's out of each drain for 2 consecutive 24-hour periods of time. It took about a week and a half for the left one to meet criteria, and I had to leave Franklin, Tennessee with still the right one intact. The concern was obviously taking it out too soon, but the other concern is leaving it in too long because it could cause tunneling and cause even more damage. We've had to renew my antibiotics for 2 additional rounds, which means that after all this is said and done, I will have to work on rebuilding my gut health yet again. And my recovery is going to have to be very different, which is why I have decided to share my story. I'm praying that next Thursday when I see my surgeon, I have to travel all the way back to Franklin. By the way, Franklin is 4 hours and 15 minutes from me with good traffic. Because of my condition, I am not able to sit directly in my rear end. I'm actually sitting on a specific type of pillow that creates a space between my buttocks and the actual seat, but I have to hold my weight in my legs and it's very uncomfortable. The trip is very uncomfortable. It was very difficult to get home. My poor sweet husband had to stop 3 different times to allow me time to get out and walk around. In addition to having this right drain still in my right hip, I bleed out the hole, which is more information you would like, but it's because I'm constantly moving it around and it's in there longer than it really needed to be. So I am starting to get closer and closer to the 20 cc's, and I'm holding on to hope that by Thursday it will be ready to be removed, because that is the extent, that is as far as I can go with having the drain in. Again, this is why I'm sharing my story. The reason I have chosen to share all this with you is for a few reasons. Number one, I recognized a long time ago when I started this journey that if I was going to overcome my emotional connection to food, that I needed to deep dive into my emotions and start facing my fears. What I have been through in the last 5 years has instilled a level of fear that I truly didn't know that I was experiencing. A year ago, I decided to put myself into therapy. Therapy is incredible, and I'm always promoting it with other people, but I recognized that I was just stuck. And as a health coach And as just a human being trying to navigate life, I felt this debilitating fear, and I wanted to start working through that. And I didn't realize how much all of these procedures have negatively impacted where I am within this fear. And I am determined to break free from it. Number two, it's incredibly important to me to be fully authentic with all of you. I don't want you to... There's this part of me that fears that you're going to see me as someone who is addicted to cosmetic surgery. And number one, I think that there's this horrible stigma behind cosmetic procedures, and I think that it's completely wrong for us to judge other people for their choices. We have to do what we feel is best for us, and everybody's journey is completely different. I really went into this thinking I was going to have skin removal and overcome that, heal, get into the gym, and build a nice, strong body. I never foresaw me having constant procedures to fix all of this. And I never dreamed that I would have to have a posterior trunk lift with complete reconstruction afterwards. But since that is what's happened, I am determined to roll with it and to move forward. Because of this, this also means that I'm going to have to change my diet. I had to increase my protein to an astronomical amount. And when you increase protein, you're going to get constipated. And so that also meant that I had to consume way more fiber. And so my whole diet has had to change. I'm drinking bone broth. I'm taking bone broth powder in smoothies in addition to the way that I have been eating. And because I'm sedentary, because I'm completely out of work at this point for longer than I anticipated, I also have to be careful about my calories because I'm simply laying around on my stomach. That also means that I'm out of the gym, I'm not doing home workouts, and that means that my muscles are atrophying already. That also means that I have to figure out a way to power through and start all over again. And I'm okay with that because that means at the end of the day, I'm still alive and I have still survived everything that has happened. And I'm finding comfort in that and gratitude. I'm spending so much time in gratitude because that is really the only way that I can move forward. My vulnerability has increased as I've had to rely on not only my sweet husband for like everything, but I've had to ask my children to help. And I have a dog this year that I didn't have with previous surgeries, and so they've had to help me with caring for her as well. So there you have it. I had this last procedure on March 5th, which was right before my boys went out for spring break. I was hoping to kind of keep it undercover so no one would notice, but as of today, if you don't know, you're going to find out either at the funeral or in town or just from following me on social media. And at this point, I'm okay with that. This is what's happened to me, and this is what I'm moving forward with. What that also means is it's going to change what I share on my social media. I will not be putting out my weekly meal plan today because, frankly, I'm not doing meal prepping today. I did some last weekend, and to be honest, it was too much for my body, and so I know that I have to step back. I did prep out breakfast for my husband and for the boys for the week, but since I will be home for yet another week out of work, then I will just be making one meal a day. I just want you all to know how much I appreciate you. If you were already aware of what's happening with me and you've been sending love and prayers and healing energy and all the things, I just want you to know how deeply grateful I am for all of it. And I am absolutely committed to continue to overcome my fears, allow myself to sit in my vulnerability. And I hope that I spread some awareness. Please understand that if you do decide to have surgery, make sure that you go to a double board plastic surgeon and not a cosmetic surgeon, depending upon what it is you're looking to do. Please make sure you're taking good care of yourselves, being authentic, allow yourselves to be vulnerable, and practice gratitude. Thank you again for everything. I will continue to share more as I can and as I have acquired saying, and I will continue to say. Find your joy, share some with others, but always save some for yourself. Have a beautiful day, guys.